This is Seth David from the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're talking about how do you stay productive in the social media world, Part 2. Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more. Call me right now at 866-945-8070 for information about private trainings and consulting services. We always record the live sessions with you so you can review them as often as you like afterwards. Hi, this is Seth David from the world-famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, bringing to you another special screencast. This time we're going to do Part 2 of how to stay productive in the social media world. But first, a couple of upcoming events. First of all, ongoing right now, the Sleater Awesome Applications Awards. You probably noticed I've been doing some work with Doug Sleater and the Sleater Group. And right now we're taking a look at 20 different applications here that have been nominated as the most awesome application. Now these are applications that essentially, by and large, will help you take your business into the cloud, into the 21st century. Some of them work with QuickBooks, some of them are standalone. There's FreshBooks, which is its own accounting software. So you want to come here and check it out. All you have to do is click on one of these videos, watch the brief video, determine if you think that particular application that you just saw the video for is awesome, and if you feel that it is, just come down here and click and cast your vote. So come over here to sleater-awesome-apps.com. Of course, the link will be posted in the video's description and the blog post. So come here, watch some videos, cast your vote, spend 30 seconds. You can vote once a day, and voting closes September 28th, 2012. So come in here and cast your votes now. While we're on the topic, sign up for the Sleater Group's annual Accounting Solutions Conference. It's coming up this October, 22nd to the 24th. Sign up now before it sells out. And if you're interested in one very good reason to go is I'll be there. I'll be talking about social media right there at the conference. So come over here. You can check out the agenda over here, and you'll see there's going to be a ton of information that's just going to fill your head with all kinds of amazing knowledge. You can learn so much and get so many ideas for ways that you can increase your business's efficiency and take your business into this century, taking it into the cloud. So don't forget, sign up for the Sleater Conference right now, and then I will see you live and in person this coming October. Now let's get to the topic at hand. We were talking last week about coming up with kind of a budget to help you stay productive. And the idea was to take a look at what do I need to do to earn the kind of income that I want to earn, whatever goal I've set in terms of earning income. What do I need to do to get there, right? And the idea is to help me stay focused on keeping my time as much billable as possible. And I want to waste as little time as possible on things that, frankly, don't pay the bills. So I joke around, I poke fun at Facebook because I know that takes up a lot of our times. You know, and some of it can be productive, of course. First of all, some of it we want to spend downtime connecting with friends. I'm not saying you should never be on Facebook, but I think a lot of us can probably agree that we spend more time than we ought to on sites like Facebook and Twitter and other things that aren't necessarily aimed at bringing in money to pay the bills. And in particular, that's a concern, of course, if we're talking about doing it during business hours, during a time when our intention is to be productive. So we were looking at this model last week, and I sketched it out based on the model where it's a consultant who charges by the hour. We looked at an hourly rate. I said, here are the hours we want to be able to put in on a particular client in a given week. And based on that, here's the revenue we can generate, assuming, you know, these rates and this number of hours for each client. So now what I want to do is I want to flip this. I want to say, what if I've got a clients that I'm charging them a flat monthly fee for? And still what it comes down to is the hours I've got to put in order to earn that money. Because even if I'm charging a flat monthly fee, I still only have so many hours in a day, and I'm going to have to put in so many hours to make sure the job gets done. So we want to be able to take a look at that scenario and see what that looks like in terms of a model like this. It's also going to help us make sure that we're setting up those monthly fees at the right amounts, that we're not underselling ourselves and putting ourselves in a position where we have to put in more hours than we're really prepared to in order to generate that revenue, because that precludes us from bringing in more business to generate more revenue, of course. So we want to take a look at that. So what we're going to do is come down here. I'm going to take the one that I did last week, Control, click, drag, and it makes a duplicate of the very sheet that we were using. I'm going to insert a column here. Okay, over here we want to do a monthly rate. Monthly retainer. Okay, this is going to become the weekly retainer in a minute. And over here we're going to back into the effective hourly rate. Okay, let's widen up our columns as we need to. And we're going to zero these guys out. Alright. The weekly retainer is, we're simply going to make it a function of the monthly retainer divided by 4. I know that some weeks have an extra month, but the way I look at that is, it's basically going to benefit the client. They're going to get some extra time of ours, theoretically. Or we'll have that extra week to do something else with, assuming we can get everything we need to done in a 4-week time frame. So now what we want to do is and this is, I like to use something like this when a customer's asked me to come up with an estimate and say, okay, what are you going to charge me in a flat monthly retainer? I don't love doing it because it doesn't sort of hedge me that well. If I base that, I have to base that retainer on how many hours do I think I'm going to have to put in each week, and what hourly rate do I effectively want to bring in. So let's say on client 1, I want the effective rate to be $65 an hour. Well, at 9 hours a week, if I've determined that that's really what I need to put in, and when you're doing this as a consultant, you want to make sure that you're conservative. In this case, conservative means, we want to, let's put it this way, if I think it's going to take 4 hours a week, I should probably double it to 8 hours, because there's always unexpected things that come up. At least that's my experience. Usually I find myself, because most of us really want to please people, so we want to come up with a rate that's attractive, and we want to come up with something that's going to make the prospect or the client very happy. The problem is then we get resentful because we undersell ourselves and we find ourselves having to put in more hours than we counted on, and we're not really making as much as we really wanted to, for the amount of for the amount of time we have to put in. So my experience is, if somebody wants a flat rate, think about the hours you think it's going to take and double it, because usually with the best of intentions, in my experience also, the clients will come and they want to think it's only going to take a few hours a week, and it just always takes more than you think and then they think. So let's say that I want my effective rate here to be $65, right? Well, at 9 hours a week times 4 is 36 hours, so multiply that by 65, I get not the right number. No, that's correct. That is correct, because it's the weekly retainer is $585, and then the effective hourly rate is going to be the weekly retainer divided by the number of hours that we have to put in each week. So that comes out right. So in this case, the monthly retainer would be $2,340. Now, keep in mind, 9 hours a week, 36 hours per month. That's that's why it adds up at $65 an hour. So what I might be inclined to do on something like this is say, okay, let's just round this up and call it $2,500 a month. Okay. Then we come over here to client 2. Client 2 doesn't require as much time, and let's say in this case, because they don't require as much time, we want to scale it up a bit. So let's say we want the effective rate to be $85 an hour. So what I would do is say $85 an hour times how many hours per month? 4 times 4 is 16. Let's copy this formula down. So that way, this comes out to $1,360. Let's round this up and tell the client it's going to be $1,500 a month. This is kind of how you do it. This is how you back into it when you're trying to come up with a monthly retainer, and then figure out, what is it going to take. Really, what you have to do is figure out what it's going to take first. We're assuming that these are the hours that it's going to be required in order to get the job done. And usually, what happens with these things, also, I should point out, is that these things tend to scale. So at the beginning it's going to take more time, but once you kind of get the feel for the client, get the systems in place, it winds up taking fewer hours. So that's where you end up kind of increasing your profit margin on this stuff because of the scaling, because it winds up taking less time over time to get the same job done. Okay, so moving along, if I want the client 3's effective rate to be $75 an hour, you get the picture. 75 times 7 hours a week times 4 is 28. So it comes to $2,100. Effective rate is $75 an hour. That's pretty much where I want to be. Okay, and then keep going. So this is what you do when you want to sort of get to a flat rate billing system, and also track your productivity. Because let me just quickly do clients 4 and 5 rather. So let's say the other two, I want the effective rates to be, $65 an hour again. So $65 an hour times 8 times 4 is, I can't think, 32. Okay, and then client 5, let's say again 65 an hour. 4 times 4 is 16. Get my effective rate of 65. So what this tells me is that I am going to be putting in, I don't know why I don't have a weekly total here, I'm going to be putting in a total of 32 billable hours per week. And that makes sense because keep in mind that you're going to need some administrative time in here. There's going to be time that you're going to have to spend doing follow-ups and emails and things that you wouldn't really bill for. So you want to factor that in. You don't want to try and plan on a 40-hour billable week. It's just not really that realistic in my experience. So what this tells me is that well, this is irrelevant now because we can't just sum the effective hourly rate. But my total monthly revenue now does become relevant. $92.20. My weekly revenue is $2,305. And what we can do is take that monthly times 12 real quick to see what am I generating annually. So using this model, and we can take the average effective hourly rate equals average. You want to be careful to only select cells that are need to be used in the formula when you're doing the average, so it doesn't average down too low. So my average effective hourly rate is $73 per hour. So you can look at a model like this and say, is this really what I want to be earning? At $73 per hour, putting in 32 hours per week, I'm going to generate income or gross revenue of $110,640. Is this where I want to be? And if not, then we need to scale these up and say, okay, maybe I want to just take a client like this or a prospect like this and say, you know what, let's make this $1,200. Let's make this $2,300. Let's make this $2,500. Right, and you can scale these things up. Of course, you have to balance this with what do you think the client's going to be willing to pay. But just increasing a few of these, ever so slightly, now my annual income is $120,000. My effective hourly rate is almost $80 an hour. So this is where I like to look at this and say, okay, is this where I want to be? And so you do a little bit of planning like this, and I've basically done this inside of 11 minutes, and you get a better sense. Plus, the whole idea of how do I now stay productive in the social media world is I like to have this spreadsheet up on my other screen all day long, so that throughout the day, as I catch myself getting onto Facebook and doing things that aren't necessarily productive, I can actually have this on my screen as my constant reminder, am I getting here? Because if I spend too much time on Facebook such that I'm not getting this accomplished, right, because these are billable hours, if I'm not getting this accomplished, then guess what? This diminishes. I now start making less money than I planned in my budget. And if anything, what I want to do is be conservative with this number such that I can actually, if anything, generate more revenue than what I've budgeted for here rather than less. Because then, once I have a model like this built, well, now I want to start going out, and if I'm really, want to take this to the extent that I have clients do, then we want to start looking at expenses and say, well, if I can generate $10,000 a month, what are my expenses that I have to incur against that? What's my net income going to be? And we really start getting into the budgeting thing. So, if you would like additional help with this or any other topic that you've ever seen me cover, please reach out to me at 866-945-8070. Visit me on the web at www.nerdenterprises.com. Come over here to tutorials to see my blog for a lot more great training tutorials and other things that I think you'll find interesting. And if you need any help, by all means, contact me. Again, 866-945-8070 for consulting and training services. I hope you are having a spectacular day, and I look forward to seeing you around the web.